Her limp body will be rearranged around the stage by the other artists. It will be put in a trunk of a car. Somebody will masturbate next to it. It will be placed on a mattress and dragged along the stage. And while the care her troupe pays to her is really astonishing, watching her limbs flop as she's being picked up and laid down, her vulnerability unrelentingly on display, is a deeply unsettling experience. And this is why, by the way, I described this piece earlier as traumatic. What Bianchi does that is so disturbing is that she actually takes the date rape drug. She actually falls unconscious. She actually does not remember what happened, and she does that again and again and again. She does usually 2 or 3 performances in a sequence. She doesn't do like 2-week runs, but then she has another set of performances and another set of performances. Bianchi, that is not representing something on the stage. She's revivifying her trauma in real time. And in so doing, she raises questions about risk and safety that are deeply unnerving in real time. In fact, so unsettling is this reenactment that audiences are often incredulous. I can't tell you how many times I've sat with people who have said to me, she didn't really take it. I could tell she was moving, it wasn't real. People are not allowing themselves to take in the vulnerability of the body before them. How can somebody who was raped this way do this to herself again on stage in front of all of us, people wonder. And this, of course, is also the type of disbelief that so hauntingly trails the accounts of women and of all femininities who have been sexually assaulted. Towards the end of the play, her troupe positions her toneless body on the hood of a car. They spread her legs, they insert a scope with a camera in her vagina. They live stream the images on the large screen for the audience to see. That's the first moment that people faint. A voiceover asks Bianchi, how far will you go? How will you know when you've gone too far? And then the voiceover announces, somebody faints in the audience. And indeed, like clockwork, this is the other moment where somebody faints in the audience. It's interesting because the first cluster of people who faint have not yet heard the line, right? And when they wrote the piece, they were not necessarily expecting that anybody would be fainting, so they were quite surprised to watch this happen and really astonished that that's what performance can do. What does it mean for an audience member to faint in a performance where the artist's own exposed, traumatized, and unconscious body is being penetrated on a live stream? One possibility is that you faint because you identify in some way with a history of sexual violence that you may also share, or that somebody you love shares, that it becomes too much and that the psychic system is taxed beyond capacity and shuts down. What if, however, viewers who faint are undergoing something else entirely? What if their faint is neither about shutting down nor about empathic identification with the artist? What if they are in some ways joining them? In other words, what if we took fainting as a response to an invitation to enter the horror of violence and femicide with the artist, to join her in her state of immobility and non-memory, to join her from a place of non-being, to join her in her own negation by means of one's own negation. From this perspective, fainting becomes a possibility for a form of collectivization, where the audience member too surrenders to the piece, allowing themselves to be taken over by something. To be able to faint, that is, the viewer would have to allow themselves to become dispossessed of their own subjectivity, to allow themselves to be scooped out of their own form of understanding or relating to the work enough as to become occupied, possessed in a different kind of way. Possessed, if you will, by the forces in Bianchi's traumatic performance, unleashed in the performance space. To say this differently, if the bride does not represent trauma on the stage for the purpose of, and it doesn't do so for catharsis, like for her to get over something, to work something through, which of course is the predominant psychoanalytic perspective on how you would understand repetition. And indeed, there's a huge card that sits on the stage that has a plate that reads catharsis. A favorite moment for me. is the point to garner a feminist solidarity or name the unending cycles of femicide and sexual assault alone, though that also happens? No. The work summons the erotic and demonic dimensions of trauma. Trauma, writes Freud, makes sexuality active again. This is something that I think we still continue to have a very hard time thinking about. We want our sexuality clear from trauma and kind of like consensual and kind of like packaged in all of the forms that will keep us safe. The work, in other words, when it, like by summoning them summoning the erotic, the libidinal, and the demonic dimensions of trauma, it summons in the way in which one summons forces from the underworld. And indeed, the piece starts with Dante's Inferno. It calls out, that is, and then lets loose in the room the